Hey everyone, welcome to another video from Melbourne Gardener. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm talking about my pergola and boundaries. So as you can tell, my pergola and my deck is out from the boundary, and the reason for that is because there are fire requirements or fire rating requirements from the council. Now each council will be slightly different. Depending on your council, maybe the boundary has to be 1.5 meters, it could be 1 meter. You'll need to check that with your council. I can't remember what mine was, but it certainly didn't allow me to build right at the boundary line. And the reason why I know that is because, when I went to get a permit, one of the things that got picked up was this, and I had to have the design in line with a fire engineering report that I got done. As part of that, what happened was the council also picked up that the deck that I had, which had gone all the way to the boundary, had to be adjusted as well. And that was because the previous owner built this deck without a permit. And anyway, long story short was that I had to pull that deck back, and then and also while I was doing that, actually had to pull it even further, probably till about here, because I needed to dig those massive holes for those posts for the pergola. So it was a bit of a journey. Had to remove quite a lot of that, dig the hole, get that dug out, and then get it inspected. And once it was done, then I had to rebuild the deck back where we got approval for the space away from the boundary. That is a bit of a process. Now, if you are in that same position, or thankfully you're not, the first thing to do is to get some kind of as you go through the permit process, really find out what that boundary requirement is, and then hire and discuss with a fire engineering consultant how far is it possible to get near to the boundary. That will determine where your posts sit and where the gutter needs to finish. You can probably see that the bracket that I'm using is quite a unique bracket. And it's a custom bracket. To be honest, did I really need a custom bracket? In hindsight, no. But at the time, when I talked to the fire engineering consultant, when I talked to the architect and everyone, they seemed to be there was a concern that the gutter and the boundary was too close, and so long story short, I made these custom brackets so that this board would sit there, and then the final gutter wouldn't be that far off. Anyway, long story short is it was unnecessary, and I probably spent a bit more money and time on that than I had imagined and wanted, but it works now, and I am not complaining. But you might just simply have a piece of wood directly on the post, and that's supporting it, and that's totally fine too. It all depends on your design. Now, I would just recommend that you find the most simplistic way to support your pergola, and that will save you a lot of money. So that's one design consideration: the boundary line, as well as everything that goes along that line. So it's the gutter, it's the the end rail for your pergola, and because these trusses will need to be hung on these brackets, and all that weight is sitting on somewhere, and so for me, that was the setup. And look, I'm not going to complain now, but yeah, that was the decision at the time, and I went with it. And I now have a permit, and I'm happy that I have a permit. All right, so that is one design aspect, the boundary. Now, the other consideration for the boundary is your neighbor. So when you do the performance solution, so when you do that kind of boundary line, you do need consent. I think it's called, it is a request and consent or something like that, RNC. So you need to write to them and you need to ask them for consent. They need to be happy with you building that close to the boundary. If it's further away and it complies with council, then they're like, yeah, all right. It doesn't matter what your neighbors think. But if it's beyond that, if you are choosing to do something different, you need their consent, and they can complain. So this neighbor here wasn't happy, and they wrote back and said, they wrote lots of things saying, it's not going to look good, it's going to cover my, it's going to like create a shadow, it's going to do this and this and this and that. Luckily for me, I worked with a building consultant, and she reviewed that, and she was like, you know what, all the things that they're saying actually don't make sense, and there is no shadow because they actually have X, Y, and Z. Their window is actually enclosed inside, and so that does make sense. It's north is over there, so that does make sense. So there's a few things that you just need to work through. But once that's worked through, the council will just be like, okay, thanks for letting us know that you're not happy, but we'll probably still go ahead because it's not something super serious that we need to change it. So boundary, neighbors, and then the third thing is when you do get the boundary approved, it's really based on the also the fire rating and the performance solution. So for me, the fire engineer basically said I needed a fire rated wall to be put in place, and on this side of the boundary, and it was for the deck. Now the deck, so what I got this material called Zero Bound, and I cut it to size and I screwed it into this side of the deck, and I also had to get this sheet metal cut and custom cut to cover it so that it's weatherproof every time it rains, and that forms a barrier for I guess in the event that the neighbors are catch on fire or whatnot, somehow this is protected. Now that's very extreme, right? I mean, if there was a big fire, I'm sure everything would just be on fire, and even these posts would be on fire. So the fire engineer, I think they kind of tell you the minimum that needs to be done to get approval. And hey, I mean, the inspector did come out and have a look at it and test it. They didn't test the fire rating, but they did ask about what I used, and I was able to provide them with the documentation, and so they were happy with it. So boundary, neighbors, fire rating. What else do you need to consider in terms of your pergola boundary? Well, you also need to consider where your downpipe and plumbing is. So when we did this pergola, I was I wasn't sure where I should put this gutter plumbing. Some people said, "Hey, why don't you just empty it all the way in, all in the garden?" But I was like, "Nah, that doesn't seem like a very long term solution." And so there is no plumbing here for waste, or at least drainage. And so what I did was I got a downpipe and I connected it to a waste point or drain point over there, because there was an existing downpipe here, and so somewhere under there, again, what that meant was I had to lift every single one of these and get access and make sure that the fall from here to there was a downhill, and so a little bit of work to get the fall correct and get the water exiting. What you don't want is the water just pooling everywhere and it's not going anywhere. So that is a consideration, and a little bit of design required, a little bit of fiddling, and so that's the fourth thing. Is there anything else that I can tell you about this boundary side before I finish this video? Not too much. So that's the yeah. So we'll probably leave it at that. The next video, I will probably talk. I'll talk about maybe the trusses and maybe strengthening. I guess each of these side. I don't know what I can't. I used to have a word for it, but all these side woods that the trusses sit on, and the reason why that is because if you have an existing building, it's not going to be dead straight. Now I can show you my line. You might on video. I don't know if you can see, but it's not dead straight. So what that means is, because these posts are new, this is dead straight. The carpenter made sure it's within 1 millimeter or whatever it is. And so, like, that line there is dead straight. However, this is not dead straight. And so the trusses are not like, so it's not 4.4 meters, 4.4 meters, 4.4 meters. It is 4.4, 4.35, 4.3, 4.2, 4.25, whatever it is. Like, and it's because this is a little bit curved and it comes in and out. That is sometimes tricky, and I'm hoping that some of my experience and pain will be your gain, and you can hopefully learn a little bit in the next video as to how what you can do to avoid, I guess, making mistakes. Thankfully, I did mine fairly slow, and we were able to do it in with one shot. But sometimes you do make mistakes, and these mistakes are costly because when you order those trusses, they're a few $1,000s, and you do not want to make mistakes with those trusses because they are engineered, and you can modify them. But if you modify them, you may stuff up the structural integrity, and you probably don't want that. All right. Thank you for listening to my and watching this video. Please like and share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video to talk more about pergolas and what to look out for.